I want to first thank you also for the Property Tax Commission, because it was a couple of years ago at this very hearing that I held up your bill and my bill and said, hey, why am I paying $2,000 more despite my property being a third of the value? So I appreciate you actually putting forth the commission. I read the recommendations. The recommendations are actually, some of them are recommendations that I made myself, so I appreciate that, and I look forward to its implementation. However, you know that it's going to take approximately 5 years. You may not be mayor anymore. Well, hopefully you're not going to be mayor anymore
I was
at that
going to
time.
say,
You're not going to pull a Bloomberg.
I believe in term limits.
You won't be pulling a Bloomberg on us. But what I would say is I also very much support and encourage a 2% property tax cap like nearly every other municipality in the state. As you know, the property tax levy has gone up over 50% since you've taken office, and I would like to know what would be the percentage that you intend to increase that. And I don't really buy the argument that you can't do a cap, because like I said, every other municipality in the state has a 2% cap. They're operating under it, and the budget has gone up from $70 billion when you came into office to $95 billion, which is quite a large increase. In fact, we have the same budget as the city has the same budget as the state of Florida, despite them having 2 million more residents. And so I'm really concerned about you saying that you cannot do this cap, because I think it really is critical to provide some relief for individuals who are truly struggling. The middle class, the lower income, middle income communities that I represent are struggling to pay their property tax bills. 2% cap until the changes are made would go a very long way in providing relief.
Well, I am confident, thank you, Assemblymember, I'm confident with your help and everyone's help that we can get these changes made. And it's something I'm very devoted to. So I want to say to you, I know you've cared deeply on this issue. I thank you for that. And we should get this done while I'm still mayor. And I want to make that argument very plain. I do believe in term limits. I will not pull a Bloomberg, as you said. But in fact, it is a mayor in their second term who can withstand some of the typical pressures that might dissuade someone from action. So I'm going to be fighting hard for this. I believe there's a lot of energy in the legislature to address this, and we can do something historic. To your question, no, I'll tell you, I just don't agree with the cap. And you represent a district with so many public servants. Yeah. I think if I said to your public servants, if I said to the police officers, the firefighters, the sanitation workers, hey, if you were going to save on your property tax bill, but it could lead to a much smaller workforce, how would you feel? I think people would say, no, wait a minute, we don't want to see a reduction. I told you, I've added 2,000 more police officers on patrol. Yep. That cost real money, but I think it was absolutely the right thing to do, and we've seen it in a safer city, safest big city in America. So I would argue to you, we need to make a fundamental decision. Do we want the quality of life, the quality of service, the kind of workforce we have, or do we want something different? If you say you want a property tax, we cannot have what we have right now. I truly believe that.
Yeah, well, I think, it's funny how you always mention the critical services like sanitation and police. And I think New York City certainly was doing that with the $70 billion budget they had back in 2013. I'm talking about a 35% increase in spending, where certainly there are ways, and if you want, you and I can sit down, we can go over ways where we can actually save money for spending in the city budget. And when we talk about the $1.4 billion hole, let's add up just the Thrive NYC money and the Renewal Schools money, you got your $1.4 billion right there. But in all honesty, I think a 35% increase in spending is a tremendous amount, and it's on the backs of my constituents and those who, everyone else here represents them. And by the way, it's not just the homeowners. It's being passed on to those renters as well. Obviously, those property tax costs are being passed on. So it's increasing spending and costs, for everyone who lives in New York City. And I think there are places where we can cut costs or be more efficient, and it doesn't have to be those basic services that government should be providing. So I'd ask you again, and my last question is, what is the exact percentage that you intend, as the budget proposal that you have stands, to increase the property tax levy this year? Because again, it was 50% increase since 2013. So what percentage are you intending to increase it this year?
No, let's be clear. We have not increased the rate during my entire time as mayor.
You haven't increased the rate. You increased the percentage of the levy, which is the amount of money that you seek from property taxpayers. I want to be clear, because I just don't want there to be misunderstanding out there. Yep. In my time as mayor, unlike my predecessor, we did not increase the property tax rate. That's correct. You increased the levy.
We have seen the values of property increase steadily. That's the reality.
You've increased the
And-
levy by 50%.
But again, I'm making a very clear point.
Okay.
We want a fairer system. We can do that altogether. But I'm going to defend vehemently that if you have a city that has the strongest economy it's ever had, more jobs than ever, safest big city in America, and a school system that continues to improve, these things cost money. And I do not want us to slip backwards. We have to make these investments for the good of everyone.
Could you just answer the initial question, which is how much you intend to raise the property tax levy, which is the amount of money the city seeks from property taxpayers this year?
Again, we are acting on a system right now that is affected by values and standards for each neighborhood, but not in a fair manner. This is not something we sit around and say, we're going to take this much more from people. We want to stop that practice.